elections because I was processing it and I was saying the time that we were kept waiting, it was good time for me to continue processing for any outcome. Was the other issues that were coming up, like somebody, we have lost somebody, a returning officer. Those are some of the things that are still some residues that I'm dealing with, that I'm going to continue dealing with for some time.
Okay.
Thinking, must we lose somebody every time that we are doing elections?
Yeah.
Is it worth it?
That's an important question. I think it's a question on every Kenyan's, lips. Why? What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point? And it should be a time when the country is affirmed and all the citizens are affirmed, not some dying,
Yeah.
right? And Cecilia, again, just to check, as you were in the voting, what's the thing that stood out for you the most?
About the election?
Yes.
I think contrary to the past years, we had more peaceful election process. I think in the past it has been a little bit messy. This time round it was good. Personally, I voted and I lost some of the there are some candidates I wished they won, they didn't win. But I had started preparing myself immediately after election, or even before, just in case my candidates don't win, what will I do? And I gave myself time to process it at my own time without being caught by the results. So by the time they were being announced, I had already sorted myself, especially for the few who were very dear to me.
I'm sure that you must have had there was a sinking of spirit at some point. You're like, oh, I mean,
Yeah,
wish, right?
yeah, it was there. It was there. Is loss. Maybe the impact may be different, but it has to be there. You must feel the pain.
Let's talk to Gladys again,
Yes.
because we want us ask
Yeah.
you also,
Yes.
that all the candidates that you voted for, did they all make it, or you also have a moment like, oh, this one should, I would have wanted this one to make it, but they didn't make it.
To be honest, I had 50% loss. 3 of the candidates didn't make it. 3 of them made it.
Okay.
And the ones that made it, I was just like, these ones I don't know why I should vote for them, but let me just vote for them. So we can consider that one as, it was a major loss. As far as that outcome was concerned, it was a major loss.
Okay.
And as I've said, I continued processing it. The time that was being spent on waiting, let's wait for this result, let's wait for verification, it was good time for me to continue processing. Whatever they announce, whatever will be said. And I didn't keep myself on the social media waiting for that. I just waited for the verification. When they have mentioned that, I was like, okay, I've lost. Then I asked myself, how do I feel about this? And I was able to just put it there and say, this was my expectation, this is what is the outcome. And I was able to process that and say that we've got to get the resources to move forward, because I prayerfully did that. God has not moved. He's still on the throne. So whatever is the outcome, I can continue worshiping him and asking him, what is the way forward? And of course, I was comforted by something that comforted me throughout my life in other losses that I've gone through, that God has already said, that my ways are not your ways. They are as high above in the heavens there as the earth is. That's the difference. Yeah. So I was very comforted by that, and I have continued processing and encouraging people to process and accept that loss. Yeah, whatever loss it is.
You know, I'm imagining how the persons who we were looking up to, before the elections told us, before the voting day, we'll win by 8 a.m. You know, but before it was like by 8 a.m. we'll be done with this thing. But how many days later? So many days later, we weren't done, you know? And also the thing about, or every side is saying, you know, we don't worry, we've won. Don't worry,
Yes.
we've won. So every side kept thinking that we've won. But when the reality came home, they took about half the people that you thought would, you know, you voted for did not make it. You had your own grief, you know, grief as well. And I'm sure it's the
yeah.
cutting across the republic, whether you are a leader, you know, who maybe put in a lot of investment in it, and you didn't make it. You know,
Yeah.
so there's a level of shock and trauma and disbelief. Whether you are a voter also, who some of the candidates that you are very passionate about did not make it. And there's a level in which you have to manage yourselves there. And I think, Gladys, is good for us to just maybe remind us what grief really is, because we want to talk about it in the context of these elections.
Thank you. Grief is described as mourning the loss of something or someone. Something in this case means the election. When you lost it, how did you mourn? Or rather, how did you express that
Or
loss?
how are you mourning? Because
Or how are you mourning?
still
Because there are some
fresh.
people who are still
fresh, it's
there.
still ongoing. Yeah.
How did you express that loss? And people express it because mourning or grieving is a normal reaction to the abnormal thing that has happened to you. You have lost. That is not normal. That was not your normal expectation. So how do you respond? Some people will respond through denial. They will say it did not happen, it has not happened, and they will look for ways and the means of proving that it has not happened. It has not yet, it is not final. It is not done. And they continue doing that. Others will be in so much anger, and they can end up doing or saying things that if you are to remind them later that you are the one who said this, they will really deny that. And on the physical body is not left behind. People get frozen, shocked. Their heartbeat goes a notch higher. Those who have high blood pressure, it can even shoot to something that needs medical attention. And all those other problems like headache, some other people who have stomachache, all those chemicals in your body will increase, like the stress hormones like cortisol, such that people will start having signs of heartburns and the ulcers and all those kind of things. So you'll be affected both emotionally and also in the physical body. And when we mean emotionally, we mean that you are affected in how you are feeling. When you are affected in how you are feeling, it will also affect how you think. How are people seeing me? What are people making of me? What are people making of what I told them? How am I going to make good the promises that I made? If I had borrowed a loan to do the campaign, how am I going to repay that? What am I going to do with my life after this? And those are some of the effects that it will have on you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And very clear there, because those are some feelings, the feeling frozen, feeling shaken. Those are the real feelings we've been having, as we are processing this time, still ongoing. And maybe, Cecilia, you can tell us, is there a difference between grieving and trauma? What would you say trauma is?
Grief is part of trauma. Trauma is an emotional response to any negative event. It may be a loss. It may be maybe somebody has gone through maybe an accident. Just any other negative event. It causes trauma. The emotional reaction to that event makes the whole event traumatic. And therefore, loss is part of trauma, because in loss, somebody is experiencing negative emotions. Yes.
Okay, negative emotions.
Yes, negative emotions, because of the negative event or issues which has taken place, especially now in election. Some people around 6 million something. They are experiencing negative emotions. So, and or even others, maybe we had six posts to choose, so could also have won, but they lost in another way. So many people have lost. So that is a negative event, and therefore trauma, loss is part of a trauma, yes.
I would say that even the ones who won,
Yes.
Especially talking of the presidential level,
Yes.
there's a small delay or a setback in terms of the celebration, because now there's a case, there's a case coming up in court.
Yes.
And so even when you are jubilant,
Yes.
you tend to put some brakes now, because you don't know how this is going to turn out.
It's not exciting.
Yeah.
It's not a nice win. It's been clobbered. So it's,
and it's a very unique situation there, because apart from a negative event, this is a positive event.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you have to embrace some negativity, because you don't know, now you're suspended in terms of how things will turn out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you're in this kind of suspense, Gladys, what do you do?
When you are in this kind of suspense, first and foremost, you need to accept your feelings. You have to call yourself in a meeting and ask yourself, where am I at? If you remember that question, that is what exactly God asked Adam in Genesis 3. Where are you? So you need to ask yourself that question. Where am I? What am I feeling? What are the things that have happened around me that are causing me to feel how I'm feeling? And when you are able to do that, you are able to accept that feeling. Before you can identify and accept the feeling, and name the feeling, it is the one that will continue managing you. And you continue going down. You know this case that we normally say, name it and claim it. In case of psychology, we say that you name it so that you can manage it. You can lower the effect of that feeling. But many people, as I had said earlier, they will not want to process it. They will want to stay in denial. I'm okay. At that time when they are saying they are okay, they have lost 50% like me. They have lost the joy of celebrating this, because it's not a fair, at the square win, where there is no doubt, there is nothing that is being put on it. It has some other labels. So you are left there, you cannot start celebrating.
You know, as you talk about that, I'm just thinking about they talk about, you have talked about like preparing yourself in advance for outcomes. Yes. But that's not usually the narrative. The narrative we get from the campaign drivers is that we'll take this home. This is going to be, a whole positive, it's a positive narrative that we are winning, we are winning, we are winning. And that's what we want to hear, right? So there's no space, if you have space for like thinking we might, let me be realistic about this. You are being anti the spirit. You have to be positive to the end. I mean, is this dangerous, Cecilia?
You have put it very well, that we pegging our expectations on external. The Bible is very clear that in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, there's time for everything. There's time for winning, there's time for losing, there's time for happiness, there's time for this, and there's time for that. Specifically for Christians, we know as much as we want to listen to our politicians, we also have a higher mandate and a higher calling, which is God. And especially this period, because we have been praying a lot, as much as we wished to have, we are listening to them, that is not the only voice we are listening to. Again, we are saying that you cannot run your life from outside you. It's like driving a car from outside. You can't do that. As much as we hear all these voices coming, I need, like Gladys has said, to take time and look at life realistically and ask myself, is what is being said true? Especially if you are older like some of us, surely. If you have been around, if you is a young person, I'm happy that, okay, I'm not saying I'm happy. I was surprised that some young people refused to vote. They had some sense to think, these people, the way they keep on talking and some of the things, the way they say, which is an art, it's a skill. You are looking for a job, you must know how to talk to get the job. So I think we cannot allow ourselves to be driven our lives from outside. And that is why now this kind of loss and the pain is supposed to give us some wisdom for tomorrow. That when we hear somebody telling us it's taking us to the heavens, there's possibility that we might fall on KICC. We may not go far. The wisdom of life has taught us this. And the Bible has also taught us also in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 3, that the race is not always to the fastest. It's not always the educated who get the best jobs. It's not always the wisest who get some of these things. Sometimes, due to some circumstances we cannot tell, I think is before God. Sometimes being at the right place, at the right time, with the right people, just somehow, something which is beyond our scope happen. And therefore, things. So for Christians especially, let us read the Bible very well, because it's the wisdom of God.
Okay.
And for the others, we welcome them also to come and get the wisdom of God.
The wisdom of God.
So that we know how to live.
You know, I like what you say, that we could have suffered now
Yes.
a form of trauma.
Yes.
But this should give us wisdom, you know, for the future.
Yes.
And some things we observed, Gladys, as the IBC was doing its tallying and everything at Bomas, we realized that this time there were choirs, singing spiritual songs, patriotic songs. And I think there were also counselors available for anyone who needs some kind of support. I mean, those kinds of things, especially, it became there was a huge debate around the choirs. And some people were saying, oh, you're bringing this is not a religious event. Why are you bringing choirs here? And so there was a mix of religious and patriotic choirs. And they kept singing, even through some moments of great tension. They kept on singing and singing. And would you say this should go on maybe in days to come, or the impact of that in terms of calming down, the people and the nation?
Yes, thank you. I think, yes, even me, I was there asking myself, these people have sung the same songs over and over and over again. When are they going to tell us what we are waiting for? And I think it has a coming effect. One of the things that we say that, as Cecilia has said, that we don't manage life from outside. We don't manage life by expectations. We manage life by goals. Your goal was just to go there and cast your ballot, and then the expectations, whatever the result, they are not tied to you. They are tied to, this is what has happened now, what is my goal on the way forward? So when we tell people that you call yourself in a meeting, we tell people to listen to maybe music, the wisdom that is coming from the music, something that is soothing. Don't go where there is a lot of noise. And again, those people who are complaining about it, we have said again in this forum that when you have trauma, you do not want to listen to anything. Your mind, there is a lot of noise in your mind. You don't want to listen to anything. So when they were hearing those patriotic songs and those religious songs, they were reacting, the normal reaction to somebody who is traumatized. It was reminding them that they may have lost. We may have lost. And it kept on coming to their mind, and they cannot concentrate. So they are hearing it as noise. That's why they were complaining. And for those who are thinking that we have won, they were feeling it as an anointing oil on their hearts, a soothing oil, because it's just giving me time to wait for my announcement to be made that I've won. So those are some of the things that really made people complain about that. They can't wait for the results to be announced. The anger, the bitterness, and all that.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you say that to some people the music was noise.
Yeah.
To others it was welcome because
Yeah.
they could anticipate maybe that they are things going to go well for them. And elections have very interesting impacts when you think about it in terms of grief. And some people don't take elections as an event that you can associate with, because we have other things like you know, other losses. We have losses in terms of death. We have losses in terms of relationships. We have losses in terms of work. But now here is an election, and you're classifying it now also as a form, especially election loss, as a form of grief.
Yes.
You know, and it has its own traumatic impacts. Tell us more about that.
Yes, it has the same, it is a loss like all the other losses in that you are anticipating, you keep on anticipating that the life will continue flowing in an expected way. And when you are expecting that way, and then things turn around the other way, it is a loss of expectation. And any loss, all losses, including the loss of on the elections, it has the same way of being, it has the same journey. You start with immediately after the loss, you get, as I had explained before, the shock. The body cannot absorb that quickly. It reacts with the anger. And anger is simply pushing that energy, the energy of the loss, and appropriating it to the way you are expressing your anger and all that, so that you are not overwhelmed by the loss that you have already encountered. Denial, it is helping you to swallow this in small bits, a small pill at a time, so that eventually you come to accept, and you know for sure I have lost the election, for sure I have lost whatever other losses that you have encountered. You have those two experiences that helps you to go there. And therefore, when we are talking about election loss, we can see ourselves in the same situation. We were expecting that after 9th, we had about the 7 days. So by the following Tuesday, we were going to get the results. And wherever you voted, you are very sure that you expected that one to win. So you are waiting with expectation. And then the expectation is delayed and dragged, and then finally, on Monday, it comes and expected, you are ushered in the first stage of that grief. And with the time, grief will take another turn. That people will start feeling that everything that is happening, things are wrong because of what happened on that day. That's why I'm not getting a job. That's why my business is not doing well. That's why I cannot afford school fees. Every other loss that will come as a result of the normal life, you associate it with that loss. And you can go all the way to hopelessness. And that hopelessness can lead to suicide. And if somebody is not helped to start now seeing it and seeing a new perspective, the person can be stuck there. And it can be a complicated grief. And it has been said that a country like Kenya, where we have been having incidences, other losses associated with elections, people are already traumatized by that. And they need a lot of healing individually, not as the whole nation. We look at the micro level. Each individual person needs to process this. So that we can come out as healthy people, and we can come out of these cycles. Actually, for me, I was praying throughout the election period, the campaign period. And I was praying, God, would you remove us from this cycle? Every 5 years, we go to the same lowest level. Every 5 years, we are down there. Every 5 years, we go there. How? Lord, help us to get out of this. And I believe it is on the way.
You know, somebody was saying that right now, somebody has already set up their campaign plan for the next 5 years. You know, like, because we are always campaigning. Somebody is always campaigning. And I mean, it's quite an interesting nature in terms of our politics. But there are people who are able to move on quickly, you know, than others. Some, as you say, get stuck in a certain place. And I want you to respond to this, Cecilia. Some people are stuck in a place for a long time. But others are able to move on swiftly. They've invested money, you know, in this, but they move on swiftly. They invested a lot of hopes, conversations. If you are a voter, maybe you even were like 100% certain that your person would get in, but they did not get in. But
Yes.
somehow you got over it faster.
Yes.
What makes that happen?
It is true that people do not experience loss the same way. And this depends on the intensity of the loss and who it has affected and how it has affected the person. For example, if we look at, let's give an example, a governor, all those 6 spots, even if you find some people invested heavily in this election, in campaign, some left their jobs, some used all their resources, mentor, friends, family, everything. The impact of that election is very different from somebody like me who has been watching the TV, honestly, unless I had someone. So depending on how much you have been invested in this and how much attached I have been, somebody has been attached to this election, they suffer more. It also depends on the kind of a person you are. We know we are some people who see different perspectives of life, the personalities. There are some people who are more, who see the world as half cup, others half full, half empty. If the person has a perspective and assumptions about life that failure is normal, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose in life, they are very different from a person who has this faith thing that by faith I will make it. There's nothing. I've done everything and I must make it. This person is going to be hurt more because of their perspective of life. And people who think that who have not created a boundary between failing in that and me failing. If I know I have failed in election, but I'm still fine, it's only that maybe there was a wrong, something I didn't do right, something did not turn out, maybe the system got disrupted or whatever happened, and I separate myself from that, I'm likely to process it easier than a person who has not. So perspective, the way I look at losses and successes and wins in life. The other thing is, maybe just mention 3. The other thing is, how much loss have I had in the past? Could it be I'm going through other losses right now? And this is just an extra loss. I don't have the capacity to manage so well. I've lost a friend. Like now, the higher you go, like in election, presidential, governors, you have had all the parties telling them, come here, we are going here, we are going here. How do I go and tell them, my friends, I convinced you to come, but this thing has not worked. It's very different from if I was alone. The shame, the embarrassment. So how many other losses? And could it be that I've lost a job, I have lost a relative, maybe I have a sick person. So depending on many other losses that I've had in life and how I managed them and where I am now, all these things determines how I will process my loss if it comes right now.
Okay.
Just those are just mention a few years.
Yeah, quite interesting there about the different dispositions that one has.
Yes.
And how they impact the way they process grief.
Yes.
And, you know, sometimes people also get numb.
Yes.
So they have been through so many losses that becomes life for them.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that when we come back.
Yes.
Viewers, we are talking about healing from elections trauma. And all of us have suffered it in one way or other. And we need this conversation so that we can get on our way even as the processes are going on, that we shall be in a wise place. We're taking a short break. Again, we are happy to have Bible Society of Kenya supporting this program. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us. This is Spotlight.
thousands of people throng cities every single day looking for opportunities to make their lives better. They are employees, business owners, or just opportunity seekers desiring to have a breakthrough in their lives. Join me, DM Tanki, as we take this journey from the perspective of different successful entrepreneurs and corporate employees on Occupy Today, every Sunday from 8 p.m. exclusively on Hope TV. Look and live.
Coming up this September, CITAM Springboard Convention 2022 with fresh anointing to radiate God's glory as we reach out to the lost. Mark and save these dates from the 20th to the 24th September 2022 at CITAM Valley Road. The convention is themed Till the Whole World Hears and will definitely revive and uplift your faith. The Bible tells us in Matthew chapter 24 verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Get ready for the Springboard Convention 2022. You don't want to miss it.
You know we can't forget them. And neither can you. Enjoy all-time classics every Thursday at 11 a.m.
Viewer, welcome back. This is Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live, and we are talking about healing from the elections trauma. All of us have been touched by loss in one way or other, and it's good for us to be enlightened on how we can manage this, even as we have a lot going on still on the same elections agenda going forward. It's right for us to just be enlightened in terms of how to take care of our hearts, take care of our minds going forward. And we are happy again to acknowledge the Bible Society of Kenya, who have brought us this series on trauma healing. And happy also to, again, welcome Cecilia Mboya and also Gladys Kibui, who are giving us great insights, especially to process our emotions at this particular time. And Gladys, before we went for the break, we talked about sometimes how a person can go through so much loss. It's loss after loss after loss until they are numb. Even in life, you know, there are people who have lost elections many times, and they're in a very, you know, it's kind of loss and loss and loss and loss. You know, they hoped, and now the hope is not coming through. But also in life, you have an anticipation, but you get blow after blow after blow after blow. I mean, can you help such a person?
Thank you. Sometimes when we go through a loss, and then another loss, and then another loss, and then we finally get to the loss of election, it can be something like you look at somebody and you think they are normal. But what has happened to that person is that for them to have gone through those so many losses, what they did is that they closed any way of processing feelings. And you cannot close the door for negative feelings, and they leave open the one for joyful feelings. So even if that person has gone through some instances of joy, it will not come to help or to pray at this particular time because the door is already shut. This person has already been going through a lot of losses, and therefore, the body, as I say, the body is affected, and the feelings, the thoughts, everything. This person has everything negative, and they're not able to process anything. And the one way that we know that people don't process things is that they are not able to stay with themselves. They cannot afford a meeting with themselves. They cannot live alone. So every time that they have a loss, especially those people who are numb on this, they'll go and they do something else. They'll go and they start something else. They'll go and they start a business. They'll go and they start a school or something major, because they want always to be there, to be seen to be relevant in whatever they do. But that will tell you that they haven't even processed, that they have lost an election, they have lost so much. So they will never even keep quiet and they think, oh, this is not where God wants me to do, or he has a different way for me. Should I just first and listen to him and find out which other direction? Otherwise, they will do like what a psychologist said, that if you keep on doing the same thing, you keep on getting the same results. And one of them was even more blunt, and they said that stupidity or madness or insanity is like a fly knocking the grass, wanting to go out. And it is knocking the same grass, the same place. And of course, the fly cannot break the grass. It will knock until it will die of fatigue. So sometimes we need to evaluate ourselves and see how many losses have we gone through in life, and have we reached that place that we can now surrender and say, let it be. Where else do I go, God, from here?
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And great insights there. And let's come home, Cecilia, and I'm sure homes are an important political frontier.
Yes.
But homes are often divided. You know, there are blue corners, yellow corners, you know, in homes. And homes have their own, before the elections came, they had their own challenges.
Yes.
You know? So one of the things that somebody wanted maybe to also settle a certain, or make a certain domestic statement is by winning politically.
Yes.
You know? So they can cement their position.
Yes.
But it's interesting that, you know, the relationships in homes actually do get impacted
Yes.
by these wins and losses politically. You know, I'm saying that because I have an experience whereby some people in a family were actually wailing, like shedding tears because of some losses. But other people are saying, we told you, in the same family. We told you, you know. And domestically, how should we manage this when, you know, from a psychological point of view?
Thank you for that question. Actually, I'm one of the, in my family, with my siblings, we were divided.
Oh, some people have even left.
Yes.
Left WhatsApp groups.
So we had a tag of,
yeah.
so we were saying, we are going on a certain day, we were to call one another and to see who has won, really. So me and some siblings, I was with my mom, and the others were the other side. And it was, so when I discovered, I felt like the way this thing is going. So I called myself and I said, it seems like you are winning. We are not winning. So I was trying to neutralize and handling it. So I think in family, we also have to ask ourselves, who is winning, who is losing, and who is winning? Is it them, or is us here who are settling some scores? Who is really losing? And what am I really losing? I remember within this period, somebody called, a friend called and told me, I've been crying from when they were announced. That was around 11. And until now, I'm crying, Cecilia, I need help now. I can't handle. And I said, crying for what? I was in the same team, and me, I'm not crying. He said, Cecilia, this thing is serious. And I said, okay, let's look at it this way. Now I said, okay, let's try to do a bit of professional. What did you lose? Can you write me 5 things you lost, you as a person, because of that person we saw in the TV? You don't know them, you have never met them. And as she wrote, and as we continued, she laughed and told me, by the way, what did I really lose? And she was part of breaking the whatever. So sometimes in a family, it could be that we are disagreeing on something. So if you say this automatically and consciously because I don't like you, and I don't like your ideas and what you do. So if you say you like blue, I go to the other one just to annoy you. So, and it is a win for me over you, not those ones. It's a win over you and a loss for you, and to bring a statement. So the way to handle this is to know it's that there. It's us to handle our issues. And in a relationship, I like somebody who said that if I sit on you, you sit on me one day, another one I sit on you. That is the way relationship are supposed to be. So if you won and I lost, a wise person in the relationship should be able to know it's not them, it is us. And we need peace for us to make it to the next level. So for me, that is what I would say about families. For me, I had with I agreed very fast before they even told me. It seems we are losing, so I think you are right. So by the time they were coming to beat me, they had already accepted, considered. So there was no issue. But it was painful a bit. Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way you just put it. Let's talk about children, Gladys.
Yeah.
You know, we've all been glued on TV.
Yeah.
And children have consumed this. They've consumed the yellows, they've consumed the blues, they've consumed the rhetoric, the narrative, they've seen the images. And they have consumed this. They may not have been active voters or they are passive smokers, so to speak, in this. And we always learn that passive smokers, it's more dangerous for them than the active smokers. How do we help children? Because they start asking questions. They start asking, for instance, why did somebody have to die? IBC, why? And all these things, why are they setting up fires? Because all of us now are glued on this TV. We have suspended their cartoons and things like that. It's us now, the grown-ups, watching this. And the kids are, how do we manage this? I mean, both now and going forward?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a good question. There is one of the losers somewhere who said this, that people should stop voting with anger. And really, that's where we need to start. From the time Kenya became a republic, there has been people who have been carrying on this anger. And unless there is radical forgiveness, even in a country like Kenya, we are going to continue transferring this, because trauma which is not transformed is transferred. So we are simply transferring the same trauma that happened those times, the years of independence, because some of us were not even born at that particular time. And the things that were said at that particular time, we were young kids when we were growing up, and we didn't even hear them. But the anger in which the adults normally process elections, it is transferred to our kids. So even if they don't know why this tribe and this tribe cannot eat from the same plate, they will carry that. And unless we have radical forgiveness, and the same way we did all this, we displayed it to them. We displayed our anger, we displayed our bitterness, our hatred for those other people. We need to come home and do the same thing. In front of those ones, you have to address everybody who was involved. Put the children together, and let's process these ones as families. Maybe this is the appropriate time to do this. Get back to the home, and let's have patterns or habits that can bring the home into connection. Because any other solution, apart from the one that Christ told the dividing wall between Jews and Gentiles, apart from that one, there will be nothing that can reconcile tribes, that can reconcile families, that can reconcile ages, that can reconcile genders, nothing. It is only that one. So I think this is a call to action and a call to prayer. Let's come together and involve everybody. We have involved in this whole drama. But one thing that I noticed that when we were waiting for elections, and it was for me, it was such a joy. Children were very busy playing outside there, oblivious of why you people are glued on your set here, waiting for something. It's like you are mourning in anticipation that you are losing. And then the children are just playing there and hooray and everything. I was very happy for that. I wish things were as happy as that, but the happy ending was so short-lived because the anger was put back in the house and we put the children through all that drama.
You know, when you talk about children playing outside, I mean, there was just in a street that I frequent, I overheard just over that time, one kid who ran into the street and said, oh, so-and-so, you know, I was supporting so-and-so. And I was more of 5-year-old. And the other one who was riding his bike said, how stupid are you? How could you support such kind of a person? And this other kid was really heartbroken. He was frozen and he cried, actually.
Yeah.
So there's this, as you say, there's a messaging. There's a political communication that happens amongst kids. And you have now to address this kid who has been termed foolish for having supported a particular kind of person. And they are 5, you know. And they're 6 and they're 7 having these political conversations, which is quite important for us to know that kids are getting involved and we need to get them into the healing, you know, space going forward.
Yes.
And there's this, talking about, you know, going forward, there's this famous statement that kind of makes things simple, like makes the whole thing simplistic. They say, accept and move on. Like on social media, you'll find, hey, you guys, accept and move on. Is it possible? Is it that simple?
No. It is not possible to just accept if you have failed. In quote, if we as a community, as believers in this kind of movement, in the party, we can't just accept and move on. Of course, that is supposed to be the ideal situation. But the reality is there's somebody called, a psychologist called Jai Wardle, and he has given 4 steps of moving on. And it is not states. It's a process. And he says when we have like that kind of emotional pain, the first thing is to accept the loss. Accept the reality is, regardless of the circumstance, a loss has been announced. We can handle what caused the loss, whether it was legal, whether it's valid or not valid later. But the truth, at the moment now, where we are living now, there's a loss. Accept that we have lost. The second step is to allow the pain of the loss. Allow the pain to go through us and allow us to go through the pain. We have to allow ourselves to go through the process and feel the pain. And it goes through until we go to the end. Because you cannot go to the mountain until you go through the valley. So you have, and we have these phases of life, they are normal. We must go through the pain, go through the valley, get down there, then you now start climbing up. And the other one is to adjust to the new environment. Like one of my young sisters was telling me, I learn to accept to see these smiles. Learn to accept them. She was telling me to practice to see this. And she was really making fun, my sister. And she kept on bumping with those, and I kept on laughing with all the emojis. Learn to accept the new reality. Adjust. What is this that I can do? Now this is the situation. What is the good in this? And then finally is, how can I reinvest myself now? I was feeling like this. I have adjusted, I've felt the pain, I've come out of through it. How can I reinvent myself in a way that I can now face the new reality? What are some of those ideals? What is the paradigm? What is this I need to shift in my thinking? As Cecilia, as a Christian, as whoever in this kind of loss, even if I'm the one who was vying, do I need other alliances? Do I need to align myself with the ones who have won? So that maybe I can also help. If I wanted to help people, I can still help, even if I'm not the one who, I can still have resources, I still have the talents, I still have the skills. So if we do that, we will not just accept and move on. We need to have this process. For some, as we said, it may take a shorter time. For others, it may take longer time, but we need to go through the process of healing for us to be able to move. In fact, just like any wound, you cannot just be cut at your leg and you are told to just move. Forget you have felt pain, but just move. No, you need healing to be able to move well, depending on the depth of the cut. If it is just a scratch, you may rest for 5 minutes and then walk. But if it's a hole, the leg is hanging or dangling, you may need some support.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well said. And I'm just thinking in terms of the killing, the place of lamenting. Gladys, I mean, we have all this, you know, like you've been told to get used to these smiles. You know, but where would you lament? Like, what's your space? What are some forms in which, either at a domestic level or at a community level, how do we, yes, we are accepting these smiles, but how do we lament? How do we say we are not comfortable with these smiles? How do we say that these smiles are irritating us? I mean, the place of lament. I mean, maybe you can tell us about that.
Thank you. As Shiri has said, that you really have to accept the pain and go through the pain. Some psychologists call it cut your losses. You don't have to continue having the losses, increasing your losses because you don't even have the smiles. Get the smiles back. But how can you do that? People have spoken, I saw a quote somewhere saying that sometimes we talk about peace, but nobody is talking about justice. But justice, God has said that vengeance belongs to me. And therefore, you can take your time and seek justice at the highest level. Because we cannot preempt the fact that some of the people who have lost, they lost because somebody did some injustice upon them. So if such is the case, justice, the perfect judge, is only God. So you can go to God in a safe place, in your house, in your room alone, and you write, like when we are talking to children, we tell them, write a letter to God. And children are never taught by anybody, but they know to say, it isn't fair. So you go and write a letter to God. It isn't fair that, Lord, I have lost this election. And people are laughing at me. And people are mocking me. Speak even the most intense things that come from your heart. If you think that God has forsaken you, tell him. He's not shaken by our emotions. Tell him you are angry with him, like Jonah did. I'm angry even to death. And he was angry with God. Tell God that you feel like he's having his hands in the pocket. There's somewhere David told God, get your hands out of your pocket and help me. Don't just stand there. Tell him whatever it takes to relieve you of the pain that you are going through, just give it to him. Actually, he's always there, waiting for you. And he has said in Matthew 11:28, that come to me, all you who are heavily burdened, and I'll give you rest.
Okay.
You can get the rest through that lament. Pour your pain to him, like Job did in Job 3. He said, cursed be that day that I was born. That cursed be that day that somebody said a boy has been born. Cursed be that day. That day, it should not have seen the light. I should never have been born. I should have died in the womb. You know, just pour all your pain and leave it there. Don't leave it there and then carry a bit of it.
Okay.
Just leave the whole of it there.
All right. And it's a wonderful place for us to end this conversation because the place to lament, the best place to lament is to God.
Yes.
Because you might turn left and find colors you don't like. You might turn right and find colors you don't like. But if you look up, you'll always find a friend in Jesus. So politically, even in terms of politics, the place of lament, grand lament, is in God. Ask God all the questions that you have in your heart. Express them in a way that you feel this in a raw way, the way you feel them, express them. Because God is big enough to handle your lament. God is big enough to handle your questions. And so even as we go through this time and you don't know where to vent your issues, remember God is that place. He is that place you can run to, and you shall find refuge, you shall find solace. And so God is relevant to us at this time as Kenyans, because He's available for us to help us process our grieving at this time. Again, remember a very important saying that it's good for us when you think about feelings and emotions. Name them so that you can be able to manage them. This has been Spotlight. Again, thank you for watching.